Button. Good afternoon. This is Robert Cornicelli, National President for Veterans for America First. And I did an interview about an hour ago, and it always seems like I'm opening up with the same opening, but I really mean it because as a national president of a veterans organization, if you're interviewing someone and you're about to give them the endorsement, there's got to be something to these people. There's got to be substance. There has to be something you believe in because if you don't, they're not worthy of the endorsement. So the greatest thing about doing this is I'm honored to meet most of these people. I mean, if I don't feel honored to meet them, they're not getting the Veterans for America First endorsement. I have to really feel that these people have something in them, that they're just not going to be a paper cutout or a cardboard cutout collecting a check and getting rich like AOC and the rest of these knuckleheads. Um, George Harris is one of these guys. George Harris is running for Senate in the eighth Senate district, right? Eighth Senate district in the
Yeah,
great state of Nevada. I don't want to say Nevada because I get in trouble. Nevada. Am I saying it right?
it's Nevada. Yes.
Nevada. New York. It just doesn't come out right. And it really is an honor to meet you. I've read so much about you. So many people have contacted me about this race and about you. You have a following of some amazing people, Mr. Harris. And before we get into everything about you and what you plan on doing, we're giving you our endorsement. We're honored that you're even accepting it. That's how highly recommended you come.
Well, I'm honored to get your endorsement, and to be frank with you, as you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of veterans organizations out there that are, I don't want to say they're phony, but let's just say they're not legitimate. And you are definitely a legitimate organization, and it is an honor to be recognized by guys that have seen some of the same dirt I've seen.
You know, this veteran group isn't just about endorsements. It's not just about getting our face in a video with candidates and people who sit in elected positions. We draft legislation and we try to get it passed. We're the ones who brought the Halo law down to Georgia, testified before the House and Senate. We're the ones who sent it to representatives in Florida. I personally sat with the lieutenant governor here in the great state of South Carolina to get the Halo law, hands off law enforcement, passed, creating a 25-foot barrier between civilians and law enforcement. So never drive your car and someone cuts into that little space you kept as your comfort zone. No matter, I don't care who you are, your temperature goes up because you felt safe and then someone came into your safe zone. How do you think a police officer feels when they're taught in a police academy, keep a 21-foot reactionary gap between you and someone else so you can react? Um, so we're not just about getting our faces in videos. We draft legislation. We try to get legislation passed that helps veterans survive, helps veterans prosper, and protects their benefits as well as law enforcement officers and their benefits. So you are right, and I'm not patting Veterans for America First on the back, but we are multifaceted. We're here to get people elected who are going to do everything they can to protect service members, to protect veterans, to protect law enforcement officers. And we're doing this video for people who are going to watch and want to know about you, but I know about you. I know what you are about. I know what you're a fighter, and you are going to make sure veterans, law enforcement are protected. And it's our honor to give it to you.
And everything we can do at the state level, I'm going to ensure we do. My tagline is bringing adult supervision back to the legislature. We unfortunately in Nevada we have too many activists and
Yeah.
frankly too many government employees as elected officials, and they don't always do what's right. And most of them don't understand what's going on, in the world of veterans and the challenges they face when they go to the VA hospital or in Las Vegas in the tunnels, they're called the tunnels, they're the storm drains underground. We have probably 2,300 people in these tunnels, and I would say well over a third of them are veterans, and they're suffering from PTSD, they're suffering from mental illness, they're suffering from drug addiction. And we go down in those tunnels with water and sandwiches and stuff and try to bring those folks out. And, you know, you can't force someone to do what they don't want to do. But alls we can do is continue to work it. But it all starts at the state level because that's where the policy comes from. That's where that's where policy is made and the decisions are made. And sometimes people may not like what the policies are, but my job, if I'm lucky enough to get elected, is
When?
and when I get elected is to protect the taxpayer and to protect veterans and to protect moms and to protect kids. I mean, we've got a lot of folks in that legislature I mean, we've got maybe 16 people in that legislature that think defunding cops is a good idea.
Well, you I grew up in New York. I moved down to South Carolina about 2.5 years ago, and I went to my first county Republican meeting here. And before they even started, before they did the pledge, they said a prayer. Um, I go into a diner here and there, and three men were sitting in the table next to me. And of course, I don't talk to too many people here because of my New York accent. Right away, they like go back. But I started talking to a couple of these guys, and they were all conservative. They said a prayer before breakfast. So when you're in this climate, this culture of you're not afraid to talk about religion or express your faith or talk to other people about faith, you start believing more in um, thanking people for running for office and bringing faith back into it, bringing morals back into it, bringing values back into it. And the reason I say that is I really believe God is sending us soldiers, sending us people God sends, people who are really going to try to make a difference. I know Trump is one of them. I think JD Vance is one of them. Marco Rubio, this guy out of nowhere, I never thought he was what he really is. And I think there's some sort of divine intervention where these people coming out of the woodwork and they're trying to bring back faith.
Well, look,
And go
there's
ahead, I'm
certainly
sorry.
divine intervention. I mean, they tried to assassinate the president on camera, and of course, there's divine intervention. God took his head and moved it, as you know. I mean, you were in the military. That doesn't happen. I mean, that had to be divine intervention.
But I think you're one of those guys. I think behind you, there's this power to do right and to look at others and
Yeah, but
say,
I don't know if I don't. Let's not put me on I mean, I'm certainly no zero, but I'm also no hero. Um,
yeah, but
and what
what you're doing right now, identifying people within that state legislature who are not there to do good, is you're doing it on that level.
and
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 that's
I'm
what this
and I'm
country needs at every
and,
level.
and they need it at every level, and I'm getting the thing. And don't get me wrong, it's not that, of course everybody aspires to be a hero, but I worked for, Dick Marcinko, the first commander, SEAL Team 6. Now that was an American hero, you know. And I've worked for many famous guys, Sheldon Adelson, a guy
Okay.
named Don Ahern, and these guys they changed the landscape of our world. And I'm not saying they always did it with the correct motives, but they did it, in a strong way of I'm a businessman and I'm creating jobs and I'm creating opportunity. And my biggest goal is, and all my success is based on what I learned in the military, the discipline I learned in the military, the tactical awareness I learned in the military, the strategic thought process I learned in the military. And when I got out of the military, when and I don't tell a lot of people this. I'm a service disabled uh, uh, soldier, and when I got out, I wanted to do what I possibly could do for anyone to make their life better. And I found out right away, you can't make people's lives better. The only thing you can do is provide them the opportunity to make their lives better. So whether it was creating jobs or whether it was advocating for people, at the city or the county level, I did that and I did it boldly and loudly. Um, but I have come to the conclusion you can't make people do what they don't want to do.
No, and you're right. I have a 501(c)(3) called Veteran Recovery Coalition. I've been doing this for a decade. Um, and I found you exactly what you said. You can't force them, but what I can do, and what most of us can do, is put enough resources. Like I was an infantry officer. Well, your machine gunner had a lane. Your grenadier had a lane. Everyone has a lane. They don't have to worry about if chow was back there, or water's back there, or ammo's back there, because those people provided those resources, had their lane, and their job was to just do that. I found that veterans who need help, they have a mission, and that's to stabilize their lives and become a part of the community again. That they're a working part of the community, and we try to put all the resources around them: food, sustenance, employment training, better schooling, more advanced schooling. Put all these resources around them like they're used to having in the military, and let them try to go with that and not have to fight for all that stuff. Like, what's your mission? You want to get a job, but we're going to put every resource around you.
To help you. The one thing that I see a lot of our brothers, they fight with drug addiction. They fight with, and the drug addiction starts because they have some form of PTSD. And what we've done terrible at is that back in the early 80s, unfortunately, under Ronald Reagan, who I think was the greatest president we ever had, we went away from mental health care. And I think it's time that, we're the wealthiest nation on the planet. I think it's time we go back to mental health care. I think it's time we provide opportunity. And some people, no one wants to hear this, and that now I'm the bad guy. Some people need to be picked up, plucked, and put in a program to be helped and get the right medications. And I've got friends of mine, from the military that you know, they went through some very tough stuff, and they're schizophrenic, they've got depression, they've got this. And I think we have a moral obligation to figure out a way to fund those programs and make sure that, the people who protected us and protected our way of life and protected our Constitution are helped. It's that simple.
Well, we saw how much money was wasted with USAID. We saw how much was wasted with, the Somali fraud in Minnesota. I mean, you're talking trillions and trillions of dollars. We
It
have
is
the money.
trillion. You know what? You hit the nail on the head. It is
We have,
trillion. Here's what's really frustrating. When a congresswoman who was worth no more, and I'm talking about AOC and that Omar lady,
or
when they
Presley.
when they entered Congress, neither one of them had a net worth period. AOC, by all reports, is worth almost $11 million. The other lady made $11 million last year, you know? And when are we going to, and the Republicans are they're at fault too, because
Oh,
someone's
yeah.
got to stand up and say, look, we got to figure out how this happened and why we're not helping veterans. It's a simple thing. Look, I'm a guy who is a beneficiary of the Veterans Administration and the VA hospital, and I'm not one of those guys who I whenever I had something terrible happen, they turned around. Thank God for this guy named Trump. Do you remember before Trump got elected, you would go down to an appointment, and if you were 10 minutes late, because of traffic, nothing you would be rescheduled and you couldn't get in for 6 months or 5 months. And then Trump said, listen, if you can't see these kids in 14 days, they go out to the community, period. End of discussion. The VA is the best thing that ever happened since Trump's been in the
I
office.
love my VA.
Yeah, I love my VA. My VA hospital is the people there care. They're given the resource they need to do. I just hope that we can come up with a plan to help these guys and girls that are on the streets. Because I remember I told you I'm running for state senate, and I tell everybody all the time, and this, you were an officer. When you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you're the dumbest guy in the room,
I always
and
say, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
you're in the wrong room. That's right.
Find a room where you're not the smartest. That's
And
where you
and
learn. Yeah, we
and
wrote a law. called the Halo law, hands off law enforcement officers, and I told you about this. And we passed it. We're getting it passed in I wrote it like in 2000 during the summer of love in New York. I wanted there to be a 3 foot barrier between law enforcement officers and protesters because phones nowadays can videotape from 20 something feet away.
Right.
Um, because you can't draw your weapon when someone's in your face with a phone. You can't draw your weapon. You can't protect someone else. You can't protect your weapon when someone's in your face.
Right.
And like I say, when you have that safe distance between you and someone in front of you, and you're driving, and someone cuts into that space, their blood pressure goes up. I mean, you just took away your safety. Think about these poor law enforcement officers. But it's now called the 25-foot Safety Act. They call it the HALO law, hands off law enforcement officers. And it's based off the 21-foot reactionary gap that policemen are taught or police officers are taught in their police academies. It takes 1.5 seconds for someone to close that distance with a weapon, keep people 21 foot away. So there's not in Florida, it's passed. If a police officer tells you get back 25 feet, you're going to be charged with obstruction. They must. It's passing in Georgia. Lieutenant Governor Evett in South Carolina is going to pass it. I'm going to send you our version. Um,
I'll get you in front of Stavros Anthony. He's our lieutenant governor.
it's something that I might have met him at the Lieutenant Governor Association meeting.
Very good man. Very good man.
Lieutenant Governor Evett had me speak about this in front of the Lieutenant Governors Association, but it's something that I'll send you that you could take a look at. Um, we need to start protecting our law enforcement officers. They don't need to go to work. They're going to all have heart problems, stress problems by the time they're 30 years old if they have to continually be bombarded by people all around them. It
And
protects civilians. Get
that's not
back
going to
25 feet. You can record, you can yell and scream, blow your whistles, but just stay away. And I will want to try to get this passed on a national level. But I think it's something that you'll really like. I'll email it to you.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other thing you?
Well, I mean, tell us more about
Well,
your best
I
priority.
have a few issues. I'm a 64-year-old retiree. I'm on Social Security now. Um, I get a I get a little Army retirement, get a little disability, I get Social Security. It's all nice. And so I guess what they call me is a triple dipper. Um, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm very proud of it. My opponent is a Democrat lady, very pretty liberal, and she's running around telling everybody that I'm going to take their Social Security away. So I go and I speak to these older folks, and they're all angry at me. You're a bad rip. You're going to take my Social Security away. And I said, now who told you that? We were here, and this Maryland Don Darrow loop said you're going to take our Social Security away. I said, well, you guys aren't, you're smart. I can't touch your Social Security. I'm running for state Senate. I'm not running for U.S. Congress. The only people that can affect your Social Security is Congress. I said, but besides all that, I'm on Social Security. Why would I want to take it away? And they all laugh, and then they find out that they got duped by this gal. But my issues are big issues, and they're complex, and it's sort of tough on me because the people in the legislature are not complex, and they're not that bright. I'm a so I was a soldier, and then I became a businessman. I was a CEO of a big company, so I have an expansive uh, life, and I have a lot of life experience. And so one of my biggest issues is no boys and girls sports. I think that it's a repugnant thing that we would even talk about. Young ladies across the country are losing scholarships every day because if their team or their individual sport they would have came in third place, they get knocked out by a transgender male. And if I'm fine, you want to be transgender, that's your opinion. Then start the go do Title 11 where you have these young girls, their mothers and fathers and grandpas and grandmas in the late 60s fought for Title 9, and they should have their own area. So that's a big issue, and it's at the state issue you can pass a law to say, no boys and girls sports. So that's one. I'm a big school choice guy. As being a CEO and you were a former officer, you understand this. When you hire C-suite or executive level folks, you want them to come in to help you run your company. Um, it's hard to get guys to move to Las Vegas or to Nevada because we don't, we're 48th in the nation when it comes to education. And so you end up losing those people. If we had school choice, it would make the schools more competitive. And you could resolve the education problem probably in it would take 5 years, but you could resolve it. Um, I'm a big cop guy. I think in Clark County, which is our county, I think we need another 400 police, which is a big ticket number. And they say you'd have to raise taxes. I don't believe that. I believe you could strip through all the budgets in the county and the city and find the money because they have a ton of money, and we could get more cops on the road. And we have a big problem in Nevada with energy independence. That case next door, Gavin Newsom, is has put such egregious, just you can't operate a refinery in California anymore. So we have a refinery that's going to close second quarter of this year, and that means less gas, which means our prices are going to we'll probably go to $8 a gallon here because of
Jeez.
him. So I want to open another straw from Utah into Nevada and build a big storage facility up in a place called West Windover. And you have to do all that through the state government. You have to pass laws. You have to, and this isn't stuff that's going to happen overnight. But I told you when we started this conversation, my job and my goal is to create opportunity. I think I would only do this for one term. I'm really not interested in. I You have to be elected to make a change. It's not going to change my life if I'm not elected. And I'm still going to be vocal about stuff, but when you have the bully pulpit officially, you can really make some good changes. And that's what my goal is.
Yeah. Again, I've read everything there is to read about you. I'm a little curious why you always have an Indiana sweatshirt on, but you must have went to
I
school
will
there.
I will tell you, no, I did not. You know,
Kids?
you were in the military, and the funnest thing because when some folks find out you were in the military, their attitude changes when they're college boys. Because I don't care for college boys. And I look at them and I act dumb and I go, well, I got a GED, and that's a good enough degree. Because I hate people that are superior. But my wife's entire family went to IU. Her father, her brother, her sisters, her mother, the whole family went to IU. My wife went to the Art Institute in Chicago. And I wear the IU shirt because my father-in-law gave it to me. And then IU, in the beginning of last year, as you know, they win a football game. And then they win another one. And then they win another one. And they keep winning. And they keep winning. And my 81-year-old father-in-law goes, "We're going to the Rose Bowl." And I said, "Yeah, Pa." And I said, "The guys out here in Vegas that are doing these sporting events, sporting lines, they're saying that you're going to win." "Oh, I've waited 81 years to win." And I said, "Well, Pa, you're going to win. Don't worry about it." Then they win the Rose Bowl. Then they go to the Peach Bowl, the Georgia Peach Bowl. They win that. And then they win the. They won every game. They were undefeated the entire season. So now I act like I'm an IU guy, and my kid goes to Purdue. My son goes to Purdue. So I'll never forget. My father-in-law goes. He goes. Max is going to Purdue. Why is he going to Purdue? I said, "Well, it's a food science. It's one of the best food science schools in the country, and that's what he wants to do. So he's going to Purdue." And he looks at me and he picks up his hand and he goes, "I don't think my hand can write a check for Purdue." I mean, the rivalry between IU and Purdue is real. It's crazy.
That's really
So,
funny.
but that's the reason I wear the IU sweater.
Well, we're really happy to endorse you. There's a lot of things on the state level that can be done for veterans. And one of the things we're hoping is when you get in that you don't serve one term, you serve a couple, establish yourself and really get a good working relationship with your federal elected officials and pressure them to make sure that they protect veterans. You know, when I went into service in 1986, I went in for 8 years in the Navy and I got out and I went back in about like 2004 in the Army. But they had the Montgomery GI Bill.
Hmm.
So they must have established it in the early 80s because I went in 86, they had it for a
It was,
4 year degree.
I don't re but I think you're right. I think it was like 80. I think it was 1980.
For a 4 year degree. In 1980, they
Right.
felt the 4 year degree was something that veterans would benefit them when they got out of the service. It's now 2026, and GI Bill still only covers a 4 year degree. So things that I'm going to send you a bill I wrote called the Veterans First Act of 2026. Take a look at it. There's some things in there that we need to change to get with the times, like maybe have the post 9/11 GI Bill cover a master's or trade school. I mean, it does. There are ways to go to trade schools, but we need to get with the times. Kids, people need a master's now, even to teach. They want a master's. But I'm praying that you win. I think you're going to, and I hope as you're taking care of people in Nevada and in your district, yeah, build those relationships with those congressmen and U.S. senators and say, hey, man, I have my finger on the pulse in District 8, and we have this amount of veterans, this amount of homeless veterans, and they need your help. Um, the only way to really solve the homelessness problem in the veteran community, the substance abuse problem, the undereducated, undertrained, too few skills in the veteran community is to pressure the federal government to spend more dollars on these programs. So,
And I want to chime in and let everybody know out there, because everybody wants money and this and that. It is such a minute. It's such a it's if you just use the 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 defense budget, if you were to put $50 billion into new programs for veterans that are, like you said, we want you to go to school, you want 50 billion with a B, it would be like 0.000001%
do you want
of
to
the
hear something funny? My bill
that's
when
why
I
I don't
first
understand
wrote
why
it,
we can't do it.
what's that?
I said that's why I don't understand why we can't do it.
I approached Lindsey Graham about this with my bill, and it probably was about $100 billion, but I figured out a way to make it like close to 40. So you know the VA backs mortgages for veterans.
Right.
So if you go default, obviously, they'll cover it. I was saying to myself, what if Trump said that no veteran can pay more than 2% on a mortgage? If the interest rate is 6%, the banks are going to lose 4%,
Right.
which means the federal government would have to subsidize that because the bank has got to pay their bills, right? So I'm like, well, that's going to cost $100 million, $100 billion. Well, that's not going to work. As much as people want to help veterans, that's just not going to work. But what if instead of the VA backing the loan, the VA gives the loan and charges 2%? So now you're taking taxpayer dollars, giving it to veterans. They're paying 2%. So you're making money.
I that's a genius and brilliant idea, and here's why it'll never happen. Because you just stuck your hand in the pocket of bankers, and the bankers and the guys on Wall Street are never going to let anybody take money out of their pocket.
The
And they've
right
got
people in office can get it done.
they got the lobby, and unfortunately their lobby, all those look, let's be frank here. There's a bunch of people who pay lip service in Congress to veterans. They just do. And then there's a bunch of great advocates for veterans. It's unfortunate. We have a couple of guys that are not only heroes, but they're good veterans, and they're in Congress and they don't do anything for veterans.
I don't think it will affect the banks that drastically because it's not a huge population of people. But if you were to do that, veterans would have more money. If veterans have more money, they're spending more money. They're having more credit cards. They're paying things off. They're buying cars. I think the banks will end up not losing that much because a veteran with a good amount of money um, will spend that money. Put that over there, please. There's just such little things you could do for them. Increase their education a little bit. Give
Well,
them.
I like where you're at on the education route because one, not everybody not everybody needs to go to college, and not everybody should be in college. But what is it? What they say the other day? There was a white paper put out where we're 800,000 plumbers short across the nation. We're like 450,000 construction work. I mean, we need to put a significant amount of money into trade schools.
Well,
And
basically extend the GI Bill from 4 years to 6 years. So if they want to go to a trade school, you can
yep,
do more. If you want to go to you want to be a plumber and you go 3 years and you're like, well, this just isn't for me, you can switch over to becoming an electrician. I just think we need to invest more money. What, how many trillions will we sending to you through USAID?
you know,
Those
I
trillions need to be reinvested here.
I was listening to Marco Rubio, and they were talking about USAID. They put him in charge of that. They were talking about the waste. And one of the kids, I call them the kids from Elon Musk thing that was on the Doge group, said, "I think maybe it's a mistake, but our preliminary numbers are saying it's almost $4.5 trillion that USAID was moving out and around." And let me tell you, when that spotlight got put on that little scam, the cockroaches went everywhere. You know,
That's 4% of the deficit or the
it's
national
four
debt.
it's 4% of the deficit.
But think
And
if we took, I don't want to hold you up, but I always say this. The America First movement doesn't, it's not the America Only movement. It's the America First movement.
right.
We have 34 million or 35 million Americans living at or below the poverty level. Imagine if for 10 years we shut the border, we stopped immigration, we stopped refugee programs, stopped asylum, stopped all this sending money, and reinvested that 4 million or trillion into the 34 million Americans living at or below the poverty level. And then in 10 years, reopen with 90% of Americans living middle class lives where we then could say, hey, let's start taking care of people around the world. But
Listen, I can't
you can't send our money all
I
over and not take care of these
but
poor
I
people.
can't stay on this broadcast with you if you're going to start making sense. I just can't do it. If you're going to start making sense, it's over. I mean, this is it is very frustrating because I see these protesters and they scream in the face, "You're a MAGA," which is make America great again. Now, everybody, wants to make that an evil thing. Ronald Reagan said in 1980, it's not a me thing, it's a we thing. We are going to make America great again. What is wrong with that? Why are these knuckleheads, and all these people are paid to protest, by the
Oh
way.
yeah.
And, I've done a lot of research into it. Some of these people are getting paid $60 an hour, and they're anarchist, and most of them, in my opinion, are mentally ill. I mean, if you look at a lot of these people
Oh
out
yeah.
protesting,
Oh yeah.
they got purple
The
hair,
eyes.
they're grossly overweight. And when you go up, all these late night Colbert, all of them, and they're far left liberals, but they all go up and they ask these people, "Hey, what are you protesting?" None of them know what they're protesting. They don't know what they're doing.
Trump is bad.
And that, yeah, Trump is bad. Why is Trump bad? I don't know, because that guy's giving me 50
He's a
bucks.
racist. What has he said racist? No, but
That
he's a
guy over
racist.
there is giving me 50 bucks an hour to say. And if he gives me 50 bucks and tells me that you're bad, I'm going to say you're bad.
Yeah.
It's silly. But look, I am honored to have you guys behind me. It's a great thing because if we stick together, the old saying. I mean, I was an Air Force, you were an Air Force, but if you fly together, you die together. And I'm going to fly with you guys, and we're not going to die. We're going to succeed.
No, we're behind you 100%, sir.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your
No,
time.
thank you. You have a great day, and we're wishing you best of luck. We're praying for you.
Thank you, brother. Be good. Bye bye.
Bye.